technology. And it would have been one thing had it been something like space and we haven't landed on a certain planet and we haven't achieved it. But this is in our backyard. So when I was looking at this, I realized that 95% is a lot. Okay. But this is our backyard. And so when I went through and looked at it and started to look at it, that's what reminded me of this. I'm going to share now from the grave, Stanley Myers, this piece. And then I think we should talk about it because this is what happens in nature. And this is what happens in technology that is used, either maybe used for good intent, like, hey, I want to water these fields, but I made a mistake. Or I want to use this as a weapon system to cause damage to a population or a country or an economy. So let me show you this piece, this piece, and then I'll show you the equation. And let me open this up.
This is great because I know a lot of people, because you're going in the hydrogen direction. I know that there's some people that are looking at energy systems that deal with hydrogen. They're supposed to release them pretty soon. I know you're very skilled and very adept in that area.
Well, this is all tied to energy. So before I mention that, we live in a hydrogen world. The entire thing is hydrogen powered. The sun is a hydrogen fusion star. So all of our energy on planet Earth comes from the radiation of the energy to the planet. Everything that we know about in physics and everything we don't know about in physics. So in E equals MC squared on the E side, that's everything. The stuff we know about and the stuff we don't know about. So what that is an energy transfer in a hydrogen world. And so what happens is the fusion power that creates a spectrum of everything, electromagnetic, gravimetric, the spectrums we don't know about, the energy that is transferred in a harmonic way from the sun to the earth over here, it's harmonic. So what happens is hydrogen oxide receives the energy in a harmonic way. It has to do with the wavelengths and the frequencies and the energy relative to the atoms. So it's hydrogen. So hydrogen oxide on one side, hydrogen on the other. And so between them, they share harmonics. It's like a piano playing a C note and a tuning fork on C note. You hit the tune and you hear the tuning fork and it harmonically oscillates. Well, the sun, the energy that it gives to Earth causes these harmonics. So part of that is the water receiving the radiation, but part of that is also the atmosphere. So in the atmosphere, what happens, and I'm going to show you Stan Meyer talking about right now, what happens is outside of the Earth is ionized because of the sun transferring the energy. It's ionized, so it's charged up. And what happens is it discharges and it grounds, and that's lightning. But it can be made to do so. And so the natural thing that we observe in a thunderstorm is lightning. And what happens with the lightning, I'm going to let Stan say it and then we'll talk about it.
Good. I love the way the direction this is going. This is awesome.
Well, this is the premises of a huge amount. It's going to be the premises of the sixth patent. I started talking about this in the pyramids and Kara Cassidy and everything else, but John, my friend, is my business partner, is like, you need to be careful. I need to be careful in this area. So let me just play this little piece here. Hopefully you can hear all this when I play it.
You know, when you're at a soccer game or a football game and all 80,000 plus people are screaming and hollering that the guy made a goal. And you hear this trumpet, and the guy goes like that in a trumpet, but it's amplified, and you can hear that noise of the trumpet clear across that soccer field when the screaming 80,000 fans screaming and very happy that this guy had made a goal. A trumpet in a sound box is actually a amplifier demonstrating that this energy can be tapped into, and we see it, and it's around us every day. Now, for example, at a hurricane, when the temperature varies and the heat starts to rise, it starts the vortex. As it starts the vortex, it now draws in the water moisture into the vortexing air. The air, as it's now swirling, is causing the electrical charges, both positive and negative, across the outer side of the vortexing air, and those electrical charges causes the water molecule to flex, and that's what fuels the hurricane and a tornado. The reason why you have lightning form at a rain front is because when the hot air and the cold air meets together and it starts to rise, the clouds will start to vortexing. They take on opposite electrical charges. It draws the water moisture in between the clouds and flexes the water molecule under particle oscillation as an energy generator by way of electrical stress, and voila, you have lightning. It's all around us. Where is the energy coming through to create the lighting that fuels the hurricane? If you have the abilities to tap into this 0-point energy, the energy coming into our universe, we have an endless free way of.
Okay. So that was a lecture in 1994 given by Stan. So what he's saying is when you have these lows in the ocean and you have a thermal cyclone and it's cycling, the OH bonds in a water molecule, it's H2O, two hydrogens, the oxygen in the middle, they're flexing. What happens is extreme cyclonic pressure in a cyclone will flex these. And the water molecules, and you've got to put your thinking cap on because it's really small. The strain on them to maintain their bond angles and their structure causes energy to come into the system to maintain it. And what happens is that energy, which is native energy from beyond the third dimension, and it's all proven beyond the particles, because we know how the energy comes in. It comes in through gluons to maintain atom structure. When it comes in, it leaks. And when it leaks, it grounds. And so it grounds to the ground. This is what led him to produce what's called the voltage intensifier circuit. The voltage intensifier circuit was the circuit in the Stan Meyer electrode that he used to power the dune buggy, that he then used with other quantum effects to do things like create jet guns, jet engines, jet gun like a flamethrower, but jet engines and other technologies and 21 patents. So his real focus was ice engine, but he was drawn there. These are also related to Victor Schauberger. I did a thing on Jeff Rense about Victor Schauberger, but this is a picture of the vortex. Let me open that so we can have a discussion on these vortexes because they occur in nature. And hopefully I can open it up a real nice way.
It's happening like
this is a natural phenomenon. It's a natural phenomenon.
And doesn't break, but it's there. Energy. That stuff is crazy.
Oh, you broke up a minute there. Okay, look at these three vortexes. You see them? Are they on the screen? Oh, you're breaking up. Okay, you're broken up, but I can see myself on the camera. Okay. I'm going to move from one network to another, see if I can fix this.
How about now?
Oh, yeah, now I can see you. I was about to move to
Good.
another.
All right.
Okay, that's better. You were freezing up. Okay, so you see the, go back to the image. All right, you see these three images, they're vortexes.
Mm-hmm.
So on the left is a vortex. If you flush a toilet or you wash water down the drain, you see that vortex. That is the Coriolis effect of the Earth. And what happens is in the northern hemisphere, it spins one way, in the southern it spins another. That vortex is because of the spin of the Earth and the electromagnetism effect on the water molecules. In the middle is a tornado. It is an extreme example of a thermal cyclone. And on the right is a hurricane. All three are cyclones. They are thermal cyclones. They're different sizes and they're different strengths and formations. So during this process, bring up the next image. During this process, what happens is you observe. If you bring up, and one of my favorite weather tools is called windy.com. You go out there and you look at the weather, and you see the weather, what's going on. And when you look at windy.com, you might see an image like this. I took this the other day. Okay. And each place you see those little flashes
Mm-hmm.
is where lightning is at a storm front, and it was irregular. So whenever I look at these storms and the hurricanes, I'm looking at the lightning, because I know that the lightning is the front and also where I would hit that with an energy weapon or an energy induction system or weather creation system of some sort. So there's a bunch of patents out there, and different people have shown these patents, but it's the same thing that happens in the voltage intensifier circuit in the Stanley Meyer equipment, and the same thing that happens in the nuclear submarine to create oxygen and hydrogen.
Right.
It's just the atmospheric condition creates a lightning phenomenon. And so what I noticed the other day when all this was going on in Texas and Louisiana, and I took this picture, was that there was a very large amount of lightning. It was not normal. So if you look at the weather a lot, you kind of get a feel for what's normal and what's not normal. I'm not a meteorologist. That's not what I do for a living, but you look at the scenarios. And so what happens in the hurricanes, and I have different pictures of these, what happens is you see, okay, you see the lightning. Now, related to this, okay, this phenomenon here, I told you the natural phenomenon where the lightning is, but what happens is you get a scenario where we just had a Russian satellite launched from another satellite that was said to be an EMP satellite. And so one time before, when we discussed this with Helene and Milton, that was here, right an hour before Helene hit here, people's electronics failed. And so one of the areas of satellite work and technology that people have been looking at is you take a satellite, whether it's a soft electromagnetic pulse or soft pulse of energy or microwave. And while these vortexes are set up at the storm front, or they're vortexing already, and you push more energy into them, you now can spin them up. Stan already showed you that they're like electrical motors. This is like just a plain old electrical motor, brushless or with brushes. It's an electrical oscillator. So if I put energy into it in the form of electrical, I can spin it up, and that can cause problems. Okay, that can cause problems. And in the case where you have an atmosphere that is full of water, okay, when you get the vortexing, now you get these effects with thermal vortexes that bring up cold water, and then you get condensation, or you get hail or snow, all these nor'easter in the case of nor'easter, but all these effects. So that's how you can tell these activity was going on. My concern when I looked at this activity was, what in the world was this so-called Russian satellite with EMP capability doing? And what could you do with a system like that? Because one, we lived through Helene, but we observed the Palisades, Maui, and things are coming into question now regarding technologies and where we're going. So, you know, you have to ask yourself questions, but this is related to my work. It's related to my work because this equation that we have 5 patents on. This equation was born out of all that stuff. Let me just bring it up, show it to you. It was born in America. It's ours. It is patented in America. Okay. And so this equation, what it's showing you in the equation is actually the equation that defines the phenomenon. Okay. It defines the phenomenon that exists. And so where it says 4E, those are electrons. Okay. And when you take electricity and you take gravity and you take water together, you can switch the forces off and on for gravity. Okay. And you can cause these effects. Here I show these effects, but then you see the electron coming out in electromotive force. So the whole thing with MH370, the whole thing with all the things that I told you that went through my head and all the things I just showed you caused me to create this reaction after MH370. Okay. I'm a chemist. So the importance of this reaction, it's very important to our future. This happens in the submarine. You don't have submarine. You have the half reaction in the submarine, but the gravity piece and the water piece and what happens here, that was something that we created. I created specifically to prove the reaction in order to prove the energy pieces that are related to the weather. Okay. That was before we had 5 patents. So it's an electrical driven phenomenon, but gravity's involved. So what happens in oceans is that gravity is holding the water to the earth. You can't forget that gravity holds it there. It's not just there to be there. It's a force of gravity. So when I play these electrical effects with electrons in the submarine from the nuclear submarine, I'm playing on water because I want to get oxygen. But when I do it and I'm Stan Myers in a container, I just want to get hydrogen, oxygen, so I can bust a combustion engine. But when I do it this way in this equation here, I can produce a huge amount of hydrogen. Okay. Huge. I mean, enough to power the entire world, because the energy, the amount of hydrogen in the ocean, okay, is what powers the hydrogen world. But the amount of atoms and energy that are there is enough to power everything we do here. Okay. And so today, the way that it works is it creates weather systems and other things. But I go 5,000 feet down and I use the force of gravity that would, okay, not 5,000, let's say 10,000. The submarines, most of the Virginia class submarines can't go 10,000 to 39,000 feet down, right? Because they go that low, they buckle. Well, the force of the pressure is that osmotic pressure is the force of gravity that will crush a submarine. And that's a material science problem. But in terms of chemistry and physics, that force is enough to do work. Anytime I have force like that, pressure is force per an area, I do work. So what happens in the submarine, in that GERO package, the force takes the osmotic pressure and creates pure water in the submarine, 5,000 feet below. But in our system, it's as far as deep as you could go. That water is then purified and you don't have all the salts and all the contaminants in it. Okay. And now it's thermogenic. Okay. It's actually more thermocombustive. Then the proton exchange membrane in the submarine will produce the hydrogen oxygen. Well, they didn't do anything with hydrogen. They were leaving out of the bilge pump. But if I go 10,000 feet down or even 5,000, and we have a whole profile chart for this because you can go even deeper. And this is when you see the humanity and the flaws in humanity, where the material science, it either is not there or it's being hidden from us.
Mm-hmm.
I now have big question marks on who has this technology, who might have this technology, and whether they're human or not. But either way, this equation here is the foundation of Job 38 in the Bible. That's why Stan had part of it on his book. It is related to the physics of Einstein's equation. So that force of gravity can be used to purify as much water as you want to purify. And once you see that, you realize, wait a minute, why am I paying a water bill? Nowhere in Genesis 1 does it say anything about water bills or dollar bills or any kind of bills. It says all this was created for you at your birthright. This is part of the lost path that we travel on, all right, that gets us here to the problems we're now facing. So that's how you get pure water, all right? Now, there are several companies out there, WaterWise and other companies, that have created osmotic systems that will do 13 million gallons a day. Well, that problem that problem is solved when you go 400 feet deep and beyond. And so in the United States, the problems that we have in the United States are that, one, you got to get 3 permits, right? You got to get one from the federal government. You got to get one from the state. You got to get one from the Army Corps of Engineers. And you got to build that and deliver it, because all these water plants and water systems we have are antiquated. That's why we don't have that technology. So what we do is we build desal plants. One of the famous desal plants in San Diego, or these desal plants like the one in over here in Newport Richey that we spent $3 billion on, those things, okay, are not efficient. This is 40% more efficient RO power that the submarine uses, that we want to use in a power plant. Why do we want to use it in a power plant? One, we want to have a physical plant that produces a boatload of water, because we should be producing water cheaper in this era that we're in, 2025. We should be producing water cheaper, but we want to take that water then when it's cleaned up like that, and now we want to use the electrical force that we can produce from the gravity force, driving turbines and pressure that will crush a submarine, we now spin turbines and we create electricity. And then we take that electricity and we double back, or we use an SMR reactor. SMR reactor, where we get that? Oh, that came from the Nautilus, 1954, the submarine. So either one, there's a place for SMR. It's very safe technology, but there's also a place where we take the gravity and create the electricity and we drive it through the water. Okay. Now, once we do that, we've unlocked gravity. It's not there anymore because now we create two gases. So we create hydrogen, oxygen, oxygen to breathe, oxygen to feed the sailors. What are you going to do with hydrogen? Well, hydrogen is buoyant, and this is where the equations break. Okay, all of the math breaks right here. The buoyancy equations and the whole idea, Archimedes buoyancy equations and all the equations break right here. They break because the operation of electrical force on these atoms, okay, the operation affects all the forces of the atom, right? It affects them all. And the forces of the atom are electromagnetic, strong and weak nuclear, and gravity. So when you pass this crossroads, okay, and the equations break, this is where the math, okay, doesn't fit the equation. So we call it the buoyant force, and then we see two gases. Well, that little place where the arrow is where all the math is messed up in defining it perfectly. So when I have a chemical equation like this, it's called stoichiometrically balanced. It means that I'm abiding by the laws of physics and matter. It doesn't say anything about math. There's no calculus here or differential equations or anything. But there are equations that define this. The problem is that the ones that we know that are human break. And so right here is where all of these technologies, they all converge, from anti-gravity to the weather to the water to the weapon platform. They all converge together. And it is fair to say that if you have a little bit of hydrogen and oxygen that you produced in the submarine, you might put some over in a missile turret 500 feet down, detonate it, and shoot a missile up like a fish and let it jump out of the water in the first stage. And then in the second stage, ignite and go on its way. That might be classified. But it's
Still now.
It is no, it's declassified. The military actually declassified it themselves. They published it in Ohio.
I remember it was like, I think it was like probably 25, probably more like 30 years ago. We had a guy that was on the nuke subs, and he was telling us about that. And he said, "But this is classified. Don't tell anybody." But now we can.
Well, the U.S. military. So what happened was the U.S. military declassified that in a video they made about the Ohio class submarines that I saw. That was all part of this MH370 event that went through my head. That was all part of this in the formation of the equation. Because the coolest part is okay, now you got the gas. So what is the beautiful part of the middle of this equation that Stan Myers never saw, that no one ever saw? Okay, so the water problem. Well, I'm after energy, but there was a water problem and I knew about it. And I knew about it in the valleys of California where 35% of our food is grown. But I saw my water bill going up and all these things. So hydrogen is a buoyant gas, has lift power. It's the only gas. So you have these hydrogen balloons, and 99 tons of hydrogen escape the planet Earth a day, right? Well, hydrogen and oxygen is naturally in the atmosphere, and so is water vapor. And so in the patent in this area, if I just burn that hydrogen oxygen right there at sea level, I can produce whatever weather I want to produce. See? And so let me open it, because I know I got that picture here. If I make sure I have it, it's in the patent. So it's in our patent. And I don't want to be crucified because we're not after that. And we didn't, let me just bring it over. I can bring it very quickly. You know how my office is. I have a million computers in here, and I'm juggling them. Okay, let me bring the image up. So in that system that I just showed you, if I wanted to, and
This takes Trump's Watch the Water to a different level, obviously.
oh, absolutely, it's watch the water to extremes. So we live in a hydrogen world where water is actually what the DNA code runs on, for photosynthesis of plants and for oxidation of mitochondria. It's all that. So here, let me share the thing so I'm not boring your. Okay. Oops. I didn't accidentally. Oh, there. Okay, you see it? You see figure 7?
No.
Oh, let me do that again.
Still has our screen.
Oh, I shared the. Oh, we're in the mirror
world.
Yeah, let me stop that. I'm sorry. It's Friday, so I'm dysfunctional. Oh, there it is. I see what it did. It's a StreamYard bug. Okay, now you see it? StreamYard bug.
There it is.
Okay. So in figure 7, we have 5 patents. This is figure 7. So what you can do with this system is down here at the ocean bottom, you produce a hydrogen oxygen and you burn it. You burn it and then you blow it through a turbine. And see these little circles? They're the Coriolis effect. They're the vortex effect. And as you blow off enough of this, you could be sitting off the Pacific Ocean and you could just generate huge amounts. Well, we saw people stealing this and doing this on land over in Mississippi. They already did it. It's all our patent, but they already did it. So this is where the whole thing with patents and the rigged system and the lies come in. But here it is. Okay, we have 5 patents. This was filed back in 2017. What happens is when you do this, now you get the natural condensation of rain, sleet, and snow. Well, that whole thing, as I just explained to you, creates all kind of thermal vortexes. This is a thermal vortex, oscillation, lightning, and the whole thing, and the phenomenons that we observe in weather, the rainstorms, the tornadoes, all of them. But see, that equation right here in this system, this synthetic system, that equation that I showed you that we came up with, we're making this as humans. We are. And the beauty, the beauty of this was we can synthetically mimic nature off the Pacific coast or anywhere where we can produce this, and we can create precipitation. We can do it in a natural way. But the problem with this is not cloud seeding. This is taking the natural process of the ocean that creates the weather and letting it and amplifying it really, but doing it this way is the practice of the art of the technology. Okay. So what I can do here is I can make the mountains mudslide, I can fill Lake Mead, because the big problem that we had or we're looking at was Lake Mead right now is 1/3 full.
Yep.
Okay. It is 1/3 full. Lake Mead is a 2.8 gigawatt dam, and it is running at 1/3 potential right now, which means that 2/3 of that power isn't being fed to Las Vegas. It means your electric bill is going up. So that's a problem. So in that equation, I want to go back to it. When you see this, it's when you see the beauty of what the creator of this place in Genesis 1 created here. When you see the beauty, and I actually, one more comment, Job 38 is the oldest book of the Bible. A lot of people think it's Genesis. It's not. I've been told it's Job.
Wow.
And the book is about jobs. Actually, it's about this time that we're in with all this. It's about jobs, and it's not about fiat currency. It's about us. So let me bring that equation up, and we'll talk about this piece, because this piece is the part that is tied to filling Lake Mead and okay, so I mentioned in the middle of the equation, you have lift power. Well, the beauty of lift power means that I can take hydrogen or hydrogen and oxygen, and I can move it inland and up altitudes without any electrical work, right? So I want to move the hydrogen and oxygen inland for a couple of reasons. I need the power inland, and I don't want to pump it in. I want it free, like oil, like crude oil pressure from the wellhead that moves that oil in Oklahoma. That's a long way. Okay, but I don't want to do it that way. I want to move it from the bottom of the Pacific Ocean inward, okay, to Idaho or Iowa, where I have my farms. I want to move it there. So as a gas, what happens is it creates a pump head pressure. In the case of Lake Mead and those mountains over there, west of you, you're in Tahoe, but west of you in California, where the reservoirs are and the other things. When I move it up the altitude like that, I convert it to electricity and water. Now it's at a higher altitude, and I switch gravity back on. When I switch gravity back on, I get electrons and electromotive force. So this piece in the recent patent, these pieces are tied to the recent patent and the fourth patent. It's called synthetic hydropower. Okay. And is a demonstration of the practice of art of the technology that occurs in nature, but is synthetically done. So you might think of a downpour coming from clouds one way, but you can think of a downpour coming from clouds as the downpour coming from a dam. And as that kinetic energy comes down, I capture it in a turbine and I power Las Vegas and the lights. Or I power something else, but at the bottom of that, I now have potable, drinkable water, and I can use it in my farms. Okay. That is technology. In a rainstorm, I got the same thing happening. It's coming from the sky right down on your head. And the mass, okay, is not typically thought of until we see the devastation of a flood and the momentum of mass times velocity of water and the power and the energy. So we see that in Florida all the time in hurricanes. The respect for a hurricane and the power of it is an ominous amount of energy that if you could capture and trap in turbine power, you solve all kind of energy problems.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
like what we just observed in Texas with the river and the momentum there, I observed that here when Helene came.
Mm-hmm.
And it came up from the bay with a 9-foot crest and destroyed now in a 1-block radius of my house. 30 houses are gone. And the area, and you know this area, I've been going to Madeira Beach since I was a kid. You were living over there. Once all of these things, okay, once you see these things happening, once you see all these things occurring, once you realize there's 5%, you can't send a submarine down to grab MH370. Once you see those things, you have to start thinking about, and Job 38, you have to start thinking about the technology from many different perspectives. One is survival, because I'm spooked, and I know you're spooked, but people get spooked from these things. They metaphysically feel negative energy. These storms produce negative energy. You think about, okay, the technology, can I use it to grow food? Okay, so my idea of growing food is not, I want to seed the clouds and cause it to rain down. I want to do it in a more calm, passive way. So when I take that equation and I move the hydrogen into the fields, wherever you were seeding before, now I don't have the risk of an accidental mistake and a thunderstorm that kills hundreds of people, because I have control of it, right? So we looked at, and we have presentations for this, and we have it all done. Part of it is I want to bring that water in, and I want to put it. A lot of times you see these huge tanks in the Midwest, they're holding the water up high, right? I want to bring that water up into that altitude and hold it high so I can use gravity to drain it. But when I bring it in as hydrogen and produce water, I want the electricity. And I want to use the electricity in particular. I want to use the electricity and lighting to grow the food. Okay. So no more, I got to see clouds and grow farms in 2 dimensions. Okay. That's the first mistake that we made that is discussed in Job 38. It discusses raining, and it specifically discusses rain in the middle of the desert where nothing grows. It discusses ravens that don't have any food to feed their babies. This prophecy that we are bound by on this planet, okay, it tells us that we must achieve these technologies. And in that whole thing of Job 38, after that, it says, hey, by the way, can you lose the Pleiades? And so what do we see? What do we see with space travel? We see the use of hydrogen, oxygen. Blue Origin space shuttle. I live near the Cape here. And every time we look for a habitable planet, we look for hydrogen and water, and then the other signatures. And so there's something called the Drake equation. It's tied to all the vortexes. It's tied to all the weather. It's tied to the hydrogen world and every habitable planet. So the Drake equation, and this Jeff Rentz and Frank Chile, I got to give them credit. They made me go look at this. I wasn't looking at it. I looked at this after. Once I saw the Drake equation, it helped me with my work. It helped me to understand that the physics on Earth is the same physics on all the habitable planets, Mars included. Okay, that's why we entered the X Prize for decarbonization with Elon Musk. We couldn't reach them, mentally couldn't reach them. Okay, but the point is that when you see that the fusion star transfers the energy to the atmosphere and the water vapor, ionizes it, the water on the planet with the gravity. And those are the parameters of the Drake equation. And you see that Mars has poles of ice on north and south. And if they're completely flooded, the entire planet is flooded 35 feet deep, then you know you can reestablish the atmosphere in Mars. And then you look at these things and you look at, we know from all of the stuff we now have, James Webb Telescope, you know, Hubble Telescope, all these telescopes that we launched in space and all the physics data, we've gathered a huge amount, Voyager, everything. We know that there are planets like ours, that there are a planet like ours on one instance, and another, the whole thing evaporating, the atmosphere is gone, i.e. Mars. We know that we can induce that with nuclear weaponry. So understanding that helps us to get control, to live in the hydrogen world, not worrying about paper dollars, okay? The big mistake is when we lie to each other. And I say to you, here's a paper dollar and fixes everything. It doesn't fix these things that we're living through. What fixes these things is what was told to us in these parables that relates to the real technology behind them. When we all have water and food, and that's out of sight, out of mind, and now we're focusing on something else like disease or modern transportation. When we elevate the technology and the practice of the art, okay, when we elevate it. So now where we are in the singularity and the technology evolution that started over here with Roswell, the transistor that went to Bell Labs, the integrated circuit that went to Texas Instrument, and then we came along from vacuum tubes and made a 250-year jump, and we came up all the way through all these semiconductors, and now we're going from the fifth paradigm of CPUs and GPUs and supercomputers to the sixth paradigm of singularity. As we we're flying through all that. We should be leveraging that to raise and elevate, instead of, I want to do a land grab over here. I want to fight this war over here. I want to kill this population over here. Because the problem with those things is you get what you got in Texas the other day. You get populations of people that develop hatred for each other on the globe. They want to produce a virus. This one wants to produce a nuke. You know, all these things. In this case, I have a problem with this because the concept of I'm using energy, instead of using it in a satellite, I use the energy to spin up the front and vortex to then cause a thermal cyclone to produce the rain. It's uncontrolled. Okay. It's uncontrolled. It's the actual equation. I created the equation. It's patented. This technology has been used for a long time, but it's not under control. Okay. And so the problem is, it's like a race car. If you're going 200 miles an hour and you got control, everything's fine. But when you lose control, it's not okay. So this here, the seeding, what the problem with the seeding is that when you implement this technology, okay, it can cause a cascade runaway scenario. Okay. And these cascades, they occur atmospherically in nature. So there's another patent, number 6, that's coming. Excuse me, my allergies. There's another patent, number 6, that's coming related to all of this. And John will kill me, my business partner. John Dottie is a patent attorney. He will kill me if I go deep into this because I've written it up and it's novel. And I hope I will be able to later come back and discuss patent application once he allows me to. But this thing that this business of saying, okay, I want to seed the atmosphere and it's the only way we can do it, I'm not in agreement. I have
you just laid out the case of a better world, and there's obviously another group that's trying to do something different.
Well, I don't think this. I think the intention of this young 25-year-old has good intent and a good heart. And I think what happens with humanity. This is what happens with humanity. I need a screwdriver and I reach for it. I need water and I'm a farmer and people need food and we got to keep water prices down. And I reach for it because that's all I had available to me. The actual vision and guidance that got us to here where we are now, okay, to the immigration, all these things. We didn't listen to the book of jobs. It's a book of jobs. What are we going to do when AI takes all our jobs? Okay. How much infighting and killing and all the craziness and stir crazy, where's it going to go? You already said months ago before this violence in California, you said, get ready, because you've seen this in so many countries. It's secondhand to you. The average person is not. And so the reason that I was looking at these problems in the phone company and all that was because people lose their jobs. I saw 80,000 people lose their jobs on WorldCom. I saw rifts on rifts and people lose their jobs. And when people lose their jobs, they have a mental breakdown. And when you have a mental breakdown, okay, this is when the violence occurs. But there's a better path, and we were told. What I see now is we're worried about $37 trillion of paper lies. We don't have the vision. You got to have the vision, but you have to have sponsorship. And this is where I disagree. I love President Trump. I'm so grateful that he is our president. I voted for him, and I appreciate everything he does in his administration. I was unhappy with the last administration because ARPA-E and DOE, they know that we have this technology. They know that we have the patents. They seem to be more concerned in votes. Votes does not really solve these humanitarian problems, and they are humanitarian, okay? Because when people can generate energy and water, they can then produce food. And when you can do those three things, now you can manufacture again. And when you manufacture again, you can trade. In my case, where I was looking at energy, I was looking at margins and communications tied to C-suite IoT agendas, the Internet of Things, okay, to evolve us in that era of the singularity that I showed you. We're going parabolic into the sixth paradigm where man and machine converge. Now we're there at the doorstep with AI and everybody's spooked to death. Well, how do you handle that in a population of 9 billion people on planet Earth? And these are the parts of the Job 38 parable and the other things. How are you going to feed people? How are you going to feed a raven in the desert? That was a parable in Job 38. And the point is, this idea, it was good-hearted. But now, with the things that we have, we need to take a step back and say, and reflect on, we need to reflect on it all. We need to reflect on, there's been 300 floods in the past umpteen days, 90 days or whatever. North Carolina, everything in California. We need to reflect on it. And we need to take our old school ways and change them, in my opinion. And we now need to do things based on real science and data. Okay. Now, if we can get the cloud seeding under control, we can get that under control. That's great. Let the data show us. Let the data guide us and prove it. But we need to look at all the possibilities, and we need to look at the data, just like this business with the virus. We need to look at the data, okay, and real tried and true science and technology, and do the things that make more sense instead of I'm in desperation because my farm's going to go into drought this season, or my farms are going to go in drought this season. Okay. Maybe the cloud seeding is a pacifier for a period of time. We don't have the long-term vision. And so what upsets me is being in technology. Okay. And the whole concept of technology and science is I want to make things better and cheaper and more available to the masses. When I get an electric bill that's higher, when I get a water bill that's higher, something is wrong. And so then I look at the food prices, okay? And as a father, you have children and the stress is built. But where I was when this invention came, when MH370 came, whatever did that to me, because I have the downloads, okay? I don't meditate. I don't meditate. I don't sit there and meditate. I don't practice all these other religions like Kabbalah and all these other things. I respect people that do, because what happens with me is I think about these things in a very relaxed, calm, relaxed way. Either driving down the road is you're driving long distance, you're very relaxed and you're thinking, or you're sitting in the jacuzzi and just very relaxed and you're thinking, or you're about to go to sleep and just relax and all of a sudden these images come. That is how it comes to me. And I don't know what streams it there or puts it there. I did have the voices. That was methylprednisone induced, I believe, which is a corticosteroid that causes the pineal things. And those things also, I know, can be drug induced. We know that from the who put the fungus on the rye plant, where the alkaloids on the rye plant from LSD, Sandoz isolated it from the fungus that was on the rye plant. Okay. We know that, we're programmable, or MK Ultra LSD. We know those things work, but you in particular, because you're more metaphysical and intuitive, we each have these gifts that were given to us, but you have the gift of that, and you do that because of your DNA code and your personality and who you are. So you can, don't go here in the battlefield right now. This is going to happen, and you've demonstrated it. So you're proven. In my case, I had the technology piece to me that was intuitive, that was a technology piece. And when I had these things, I had them in cancer research. When I was doing the cancer research, I had them in technology to solve problems. And I don't know who put them there. Okay. I don't know how they came there, but I respect that. I respect people like yourself and other people that have discussed this, like Aisha Dean, like all the other people that were at the Serrata Beach Resort talking, Danny and Brinkley, and these people that have had near-death experiences and all that. I respect them, and I learn from them, and I learned that I need to be aware, right? And look. I need to be aware and look for the energy harmonics. I need to be aware of feeling when when Helene came, I felt the energy. it wasn't right. Or, you know, when you feel that energy. So now I'm very spooked. I'm very spooked because I showed you the windy map. I showed you the technology. And right now, the past, before today and yesterday, we had 10 days of really bad weather here before Texas occurred. It rained. It's soft on the ground now. It's soft. So it's like Debbie before Helene came. And when you have that kind of feeling, you need to prepare. And so in my case, I did a lot of preparation. And you go in a battle, you do mental preparation, and you get all your gear together, and you meditate and do those things. In my case, with technology, I'm doing it that way. But just to give you an example, as a human being, you know, I got rations over here, I got my generator over here, I got gas stored up, you know, I got flashlight. I'm preparing for a rainy day, so to speak. Other people, you know, that's what you're doing. And we do it in all different ways. And all of us have these different skills. Some of us are now doing it and warning us of, hey, I got a feeling this is a deep state scenario. And they've got the technology, or I've got a feeling that they're using it as a weapon system. And this is where the yin, the yang, the scales of justice, the double-edged sword come in, and the predicaments of humanity. So in these things related to the weather, you get scenarios like, okay, Marianas Trench, 39,000 feet deep. We can't send a nuclear submarine there. And what is in scope? How in the world does a fish swim there, or any of these organisms? So we have to ask ourselves, what are the technologies? Do the groups that have the money to create the technologies, do they abide by the laws? Do they care about the patent office? Is it classified for a reason? Because there might be a justification, like in 1954 in those eras, to keep the balance of power from keeping us from killing each other. That may justify it. But when do you reach a point of, it was once justified for that, but now and the guy in the State Department came out and said it, we got the technology to, you know, bend space and time. We went through the barrier in the construction site and off the cliff. We need to now take those technologies. We need to bring them to the USA and get back to what freedom was under the Constitution 1776 and all that, what our charter was related to our agreement, one nation under God, with the creator of the hydrogen world. We need to get back to that so we can get to the book of jobs, so we can do those things. And I think if we do those things right, okay, then what will happen is we will better be able to control the natural phenomenon and not weaponize it to harm each other, but create it for positive things. Maybe cloud seeding isn't such a good idea. Let's try this over here. And the other problems, of course, in this were, I burn carbon, that creates benzoate-pyrene. That molecule binds in my DNA and it creates cancer. U.S. Navy, we got 17 ships in storage. We set them aside. We got ships in the U.S. Navy running on hydrocarbons. We've got, fortunately, a large number in the U.S. Navy and NATO running on GELM 1500s and 2500 turbines. And then we got the Zumwalt running on a 38 gigawatt Rolls Royce. those turbine engines are capable of running on hydrogen mixes. And those turbine engines are the little compared to the power plants. And the airplane ones are even smaller. So when it comes to transportation and the things that we've been looking at, and I think this has come to light with all the bickering with Elon Musk and the tariffs on the electricity and the lithium and the power grid and all of it. You don't get range with electricity in the battery, and it ages. You max out by weight on range with electricity. And the way we produce that electricity today is flawed. So I don't have a problem. I actually like the electrical technology. I like it because you don't have the transmissions and the gear problems and the maintenance, and you get great torque. So the General Electric electromotives and the GM electromotives, they all switched to electromotive a long time ago because they learned that transmission maintenance was too bad. That's great. I like it a lot, but I think it needs to be hydrogen powered in the spirit of Stan Myers and the other people. And there's 6 other companies. I think Toyota is a leader in this area. I think Toyota is a pretty good vision. I think that some of the other companies, Plug Power in particular, they don't have the right vision and they have too much marketing. I think this is where this technology fits into America in these areas, especially in the farming, especially in the farming. So I will show you, and these are 2 very nice diagrams I should show you. I think you'll like them, related to this discussion and what led us to this point. It really led us to this point, and what got us here with what's desperation.
So you think the cloud seeding had good intentions, but it's maybe being proven not to have been a good idea?
Well, in California, the Santa Monica group that did all that cloud seeding that has forever caused all these storms that cause mudslides in California with seeding, with silver iodide and all of these things. They've had a track record of problems. I mean, we watch it. So now you're doing it elsewhere. You have a track record, you have data. Doesn't that tell you, well, anytime you do these experiments, you have, your hypothesis, objective, and results, conclusion. At some point, you got to make some conclusions that maybe there might be something we're doing that isn't perfect here. We're not perfect. We're humans. Here, let me bring them.
So right here, China is a global leader in cloud seeding technology and utilizes it extensively to manage weather patterns. And let me give you a real quick video of some of their extensive weather.
So the Chinese have invited me to speak 3 times.
3 times. Well, they should, because you're if no one else wants to take you, at least maybe someone in the world will get this moving in the right direction.
Yep.
Because it looks like they're having a little difficulty with their cloud.
Exactly. Three Gorges Dam and the vulnerabilities there. I mean, okay, so we're in the United States. We're not the only ones that have the problem. This is my point. It's a global problem. It's a humanitarian problem. So the Chinese invited me to speak in Japan, Australia, and China. I cannot leave here. And I cannot leave because I've been targeted, and because of the other work that is in my background. I cannot leave here in the United States because of that. People that just leave here to go fishing in South America get kidnapped. And so,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So China,
Got the
you
information,
know, maybe that's their own mistake. Maybe they're their worst own enemy, or maybe they wanted to kill those people. I don't know. But here, let me show you the alternative and the picture of it, because the alternative picture, I think, makes more sense. I think it makes more sense um, from not just a common sense perspective, but I showed you the equation. And so once you see these things and you say, well, wait a minute, we need to start, once we start talking to each other instead of fighting with each other, instead of yelling at each other. So we create these things to illustrate on the landscape a practical way of using the equation. So originally down here on the left, we had an SMR nuclear reactor because they had a GES-9 reactor in the submarine that was powering everything. But we figured out you don't even need the reactor. You just have a big RO plant and use the RO plant to create the electricity and do these things. Okay. And these turbines here are affiliated with ways of amplifying, but here is the demonstration. And when you bring things in ashore, okay, let me zoom this in a little bit. You now build a new grid. Okay. And the new grid is a hydrogen grid. Okay. And that hydrogen grid, how it works is it feeds your legacy power plants that are running on nat gas. It feeds it, okay? Because you have a nat gas grid now coming in the power plants. It's what we have over in Apollo Beach with Big Bend plant, okay? And in the case of these other legacy plants, which are coal and hydrocarbon fuels that can't be converted, what we do there is over in Lake Charles, there's a Sasol plant. So what did the Germans do when the Russians cut them off with petroleum in World War II? They used Fischer-Tropsch to create Synfuels to fight the war more. Wow. The Germans were very innovative, and they also had milk cows, but that was another thing. So here in this situation, what you're doing is you're using the hydrogen and you're bringing it down with a natural gas grid into these Sasol plants to make your hydrocarbons, because nobody can afford to shut their John Deere and their tractor trailers and their airplanes and their tanks and their cranes and bulldozers and ships and stuff. They can't shut it down overnight. You got to transition. And so this transition, which was enforced by the Secretary of the Air Force, who by 2016 wanted all aircraft running at least half Synfuel. When they got to the B-52, they put half Synfuel in it. The thing wouldn't run. The cylinders were knocking in the engines. Turns out the B-52, if you put syngas in it, the electronics and the engineering design, it will knock. Okay? So you can run the B-1 and the B-2 on syngas, and they do. Super clean. When it's super clean like that, it doesn't leave a carbon trail behind, but doesn't make carbon, but it's harder to detect. The B-52s, on the other hand, if you ever see one fly by, it's a smokestack.
Yep. So
here on the Super Bowl, you get the B-52, the B-1, and the B-2, and they fly over, and you know, the B-52 is like a crop duster. But that's a funny little story, because the Air Force is in these areas going this way. But the point is, there's a Sasol plant in Lake Charles, and that Sasol plant, it doesn't come online. It doesn't come online till oil goes over a certain amount, and then it comes online, and then it starts making Synfuels. Well, the Synfuels that you make are all these things for internal combustion engines that you power. So you smoothly transition over, right? Right? Over here in this area with hydrogen fuel cells, you got your end customers and you got power from the grid, and you're creating electrical power in the water at your house. Over here, you got the water tower that I told you. over here you've got the mountain with the synthetic hydropower filling Lake Mead and producing water and irrigating those crops in the west, in the valleys, and refilling Lake Mead. So we actually know of a way to fill Lake Mead, and it's nearly impossible to do without torrential downpours that will be catastrophic to regional areas. And a lot of it has to do with using this technology to bring the water from the mountains where you are and west of you down across, bring it across, okay? Bring that across. And how you bring it across and do that is part of a strategy that involves the hydrogen and oxygen that you bring from the Pacific Ocean. So some of those mountaintops where you are, they have snow 365 days a year and never leaves. It's just cold. But you can use that snow because it has kinetic energy and mass, and you can move it from that mountaintop. If you know how to move it, you can move it further away, and that's how you fill Lake Mead. Part of that with the other. These grids, and the part of the grid which is somewhat upsetting with Trump saying everything blows up. Well, that's not true. Stan Myers fixed all those problems. So what happens is when you take hydrogen and you mix it with ambient air is 78% nitrogen. And what happens is when you mix the hydrogen with ambient air, it looks like natural gas, and everything that runs on natural gas doesn't. The valves don't know the difference. The burners don't know the difference. And when you run it through pipes long distance on natural gas grids, if the natural gas grid leaks, it doesn't detonate. It just burns like natural gas because that's the burn rate. And so hydrogen's a noble fuel, but that's how Stan ran the dune buggy. All he did was tune the carburetor to run at the different burn rate of the the hydrogen mixing with oxygen and ambient air. That's what he did. That's how he got it to work. And so we needed to re-leverage that. And then especially in Florida, there were two things in Verizon. One was, first off, in Florida, I talked to TECO and Peoples Gas. They have one of the largest natural gas grids in the state of Florida. And they said, we don't care what OPEC's doing. In 2008, we're getting all our trucks off there and running on natural gas. That was an eye-opener in discussion with them. The other one was Hackensack, New Jersey data center, where in the Hackensack, New Jersey data center, we had 6 hydrogen fuel cell stacks. And what they did was they passed natural gas, which has hydrogen in it naturally, through the 6 fuel cell stacks. And they grabbed the hydrogen and they used it as a hydrogen fuel cell in a reverse process and made pure water, drinking water, to power the data center. And then that natural gas went downstream and it still burned it and made heat. Those examples in that grid were there. So where does it come to the alternative of cloud seeding and not doing the cloud seeding and not farming? Because part of that problem, okay, there's Stan, but part of the problem with a 25-year-old kid and what he said and what he's doing, and when I said about, okay, when you're desperate, you do desperate things, and sometimes those things have ramifications. Yeah, that's Stan. And the dune buggy. What I'm going to show you now is pretty cool, I think. I don't think many people have seen this, but this is the farming piece. So the other part of the picture isn't necessarily all. The whole thing is not, it's not that the problem is water. Part of the problem is the farming is broken. So this piece, All right. When I first envisioned this and I saw the synthetic hydropower and the ability to move the hydropower to the top of the mountain, which we got the patent on, when you have the water there, you have the electricity in the water, you can bore out these mountains. And Elon Musk could have a field day with this. See? Because when you bore out these mountains, you can now grow food inside using the electricity that you produce and the water. And so in this thing, and Apple now and the other companies are working this, you see these little things, they're robots. The same robots that manufacture the cars are the robots that do the farming. You don't have to hire immigrants. Plus, they don't bring disease across the border. You don't have coronavirus and all the things that they brought across. You know, they brought tuberculosis, all these rare diseases in Texas that were like a mini plague on the border. Before the rainstorm, people were getting sick, and then you go back and forth with the animals. So the whole AOC thing with the cow farts, I'm not worried about a cow fart because plants love cow farts.
Yep.
And it all cycles. So here we were looking at, this is the mountain demonstration of the hydropower technology. I told you I can hydrogen in the buoyant power. I can move that to the Midwest and Nebraska. I'm thinking of my friends, right? I'm thinking of those guys out there in Iowa. Now I build this. It's a structure. And the structure is a pyramid. And the reason it is a pyramid is because it has 4 sides. It's facing the sun. And it's at 45-degree angles. And I mimic the mountain. And I just do it there that way. And I can do this anywhere. But now what happens is, and this is all what I want to talk about with this 25-year-old kid, the other side of the picture. I'm not worrying about floods in the Midwest anymore. I'm not worried about drought anymore. I'm not worried about bugs and diseases on my crops or chemical contamination from some crazy people in the trains and the fallout. And when I do it this way, in these 2 scenarios here, okay, with this, the animals don't suffer diseases. There is a more symbiotic structure, both of which I'm showing you are above ground. This can be done underneath the ground as well. So when it isn't just mad science and me doing this, okay, and decarbonization, because it's all tied to Mars. How does this work? So here's the equation. When you see it, this equation right here on Earth, this is our engine, BPSC. It creates it creates water and electrons from the hydrogen. This is our technology, the patents, right? And the electromotive force. Well, I look over at this equation. It's one of the most famous equations of all time, created in Genesis 1 by the creator. Carbon dioxide, water, and energy, photon from the sun. It's photosynthesis. It creates glucose, oxygen, and water. Well, what do we animals feed off of? I drew the cows and pigs, but humans too can live in this, and it can be Cat 5 storm safe. Okay, level 5, Cat 5, like a data center, but living quarters, and you live in here. So here, what do you got now? You got respiration, right? And that's what animals are doing. Starch and cellulose driving down through animals in a cycle. And these are cycles. And so these cycles, okay, this equation, and this might be shocking, but UC Berkeley proved this photosynthesis equation is 100% efficient. It's semiconducting. It doesn't lose energy. Why are we doing the things that we're doing? It's not all about, I need a semiconductor to run grid power from the north to the Midwest, or I need semiconductor power because that's going to bring my electric bill down when I can use the wired grid from the power plant to my house. No, I don't need that. I bring the hydrogen from the Pacific Ocean to where I want it to be. Okay. I bring it there. Okay. Then I create the water and electricity and do the other things I need to do. Right. I don't need to worry about polluted atmosphere or any of it. Imagine living in that environment. You're going to live better because you're not breathing in all the pollutants. The animals are going to be healthier. So are you. So is your food. It's going to be cleaner. Okay. It's controlled. But the beauty of that is the yields. Okay. So today in traditional crop, some crops, they yield once a year. In these kind of systems, didn't the cannabis industry teach us anything? Didn't Aurora Cannabis and Canada teach us anything? No, you can have 6 crops a year. What's the tree of life? Genesis 2. It's a tree that yields crops every month. We've made mistakes underneath this, the bridge between what I'm showing you here and the equation and the technology in the hydrogen world, that all of these things that can harm us but help us too, the weather, the plants, they're DNA codes. And those DNA codes, they don't run unless you've got the sun, the water, the hydrogen world with the gravity holding the water on, the right gravity and the parameters of the Drake equation. No DNA runs, no DNA codes for plants run. It goes dormant. You got desert. And then what is a desert planet? And then you have no atmosphere if that leaves. So if you take these technologies and you implement them and you go this path, now am I worried about seeding clouds and a mistake I might make? Or am I worried about a torrential downpour from an accidental tornado? No, I got a Cat 5 structure. And so the parable and where that came from and how I think and where these came from, when all these hurricanes and all these things blew through my head, one of the things that blew through my head was the mountains of Hispaniola down by Cuba. Every time Cuba's been hit by so many hurricanes, it's ridiculous. These people live in shacks over there in them islands. But guess what? Those mountains, they never moved. They never fell. They never broke or anything. Those people, the mistake they make is they live on top of the mountain. They need to live inside the mountain, because if they lived inside, the stuff wouldn't get blown away. That is where that came from with the mountain picture and the other piece. When I realized that was there, the Marianas Trench, the 39,000 feet down. Okay, I'm not the one that's saying, what are these strange things in the vents? What are these strange craft traveling through the water? What are these strange things going in and out of mountains? What are these strange things going in and out of the ground? So when I look at the technology, and I told you, I now have to question, what is going on in the dumbs? Who has the dumbs? Why are people building them? We know they exist. You know they exist. We just bombed some. All right. We need to come to reality and all come to agreement that we have the ability to bore very deep and make things deep. And if we do, who else does? What militaries have done what? And now we come to the non-human question of, if you're a non-human and advanced, more advanced and enough to fly in a craft, create weather storms, and do all these things, including create us maybe, could you possibly be living 10 miles down, happy and hunky-dory, using some of these technologies and not worried about, you're not worried about radiation from the sun because you're living maybe with really clean LED light, or light produced by organisms like the stuff we hear from the tales of the Arctic and the special forest guys that went down there or into these arcs, people claiming. So we are right now, in my opinion, our own worst enemy. And the part, the Texas thing and also North Carolina and everything that happened here before and everything that's happening now. Those are things that we have a path to fixing in Job 38. The other one that we don't is the prediction of the chart that you showed the other day. And the chart, we shared it. And the incidence of the scenario where we had our $3 billion nuclear submarine cruising along and it hit the peak of a mountain that popped up that wasn't on the Navy maps, first in Japan and then in Australia. We have the tools now that show us position of the earth, show us mantle movements and earthquakes and eruptions in real time. The ancients did not have a tool that showed them real time. And so in this metaphysical thought, the other morning I was sharing it with Carrie Cassidy, but I'll share it with you now. The Zodiac. And so the Zodiac tool was given to the pharaohs and higher ups in ancient times to help them understand the energy transfer from the sun and the hydrogen world, the state of the earth, how to build things, and everything that was going on. They gave them names like, oh, here's a scorpion, and here's a, Orion the hunter, and, Virgo, and all these things. Mercury, all the different names are like that. But the point is that what that really was a tool. It was kind of a tool to show you what was going on in the hydrogen world. And the tools that we have now are way, way more advanced. And so that particular chart, and what worries me about the one tool that shows our orbit, that shows it repeating from the last flood period, is what is coming in our orbit position relative to what is predicted that creates that chart, which is an object producing a strain on our orbit that not only creates the weather phenomenon that we've discussed today, but the mantle movement phenomenon that we're observing, right? Because we got now 30 more volcanic eruptions than we had 90 days ago. We've had a lot of earthquakes. And so that one piece of the job 38, this is, can you just leave the Pleiades? And so without the ability to leverage these technologies, we can't just get on our horse and ride. And we're at the crossroads now where disclosure is a weekly conversation somewhere in somebody's podcast or, blog or at the bar, whatever. And I think that all these technologies, they come together. And so in that equation that I showed you earlier, related to all the weather in Job 38, how do you tie them together? And this is the piece where, it came out of Stan Meyer's mouth, but it took me a long time to see it and understand it. It actually took some verbal daggers, but a lot of beautiful white papers by Jack Sarfati and other people that were involved in all that. All that to see the relationships. So this relationship is there in Job 38, but it's there in the equations, right? Because this is Einstein's equation here. And this is Jack Sarfati's tensor math. And these are the Maxwell equations that Ben Rich said these things were not exactly the way we thought. And in the hydrogen world, the phenomenon exists in nature, as well as the technology that we observe in the craft and the scenarios and the different cool things I told you in the patents. And this is here where I show you. See this force of gravity? There it is. A switch. It's on. Now it's off. Now it's on. Now it's off. Now it's on. So what Sarfati does is he says, okay, we can play that game. I'm playing it with a molecule, an atom. What Sarfati will say is, I put a metamaterial on the end of a tic tac and I play that game. What Einstein said is, I've been space and time, and similar with Maxwell. So my point is, where we are at humanity is we will not move past the weather and the farm and all these things that we've discussed today. We will not move past them unless we're honest with ourselves and we do the science and we let the data speak for itself and we evolve past it. Otherwise, we will have more violence, more wars, and our children will suffer. And there'll be a lot less of us as we kill each other with biologicals and other weapons. And the weather, while it may look natural, it's as easily weaponized as a dagger you pull out of your pocket. And this is where we are. So at that crossroads is where we are. The natural things like, the space rocks and all those things that we've had, we can't lie about it. We've been hit by asteroids and things like that. We watch it happen on other planets. It's going to happen. But if we don't graduate from where we are now, when that comes the wrath of God, because we're not even going to have a chance. I mean, maybe Elon Musk might have a secret spaceship built somewhere. He's like, come on, guys. He's got his best girlfriend and, a little baby ex and a couple friends, and they're gone. But people like, me and you, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. So I think we need to band together. I think we need to think it through. I think we need to work. I think we need to do our best. I talked to Richard Stamager, who is with Price, because, Dr. Price, President Trump signed executive orders for making the grid EMP resistant in his first term, which Joe Biden canceled day one. I met with him before the last election. I think that part of this is, hydrogen is not going to get the hydrogen. Moving hydrogen EMP doesn't affect it. It doesn't affect it at all. That's the electrical stuff that we can shield locally. But the grid wise, you can move it all you want. It's not going to have this problem. And this was a 90-year-old Aryan recognized by President Trump that grew up 2 blocks down from Bilderberg, that was there 10 years old in the Hitler Youth. He's American, he's over here. He's in Orlando, but I listened to him and what he said and Price and the others. And I think we need to do our best, all of us, to not only discuss these matters, but it's not just about one man in any case. Okay. President Trump is a great man, but the people around him, what they do for him and his vision, we need to work with him and those people. We need to work together. We need to say, hey, look, let's stop and smell the roses here. Let's try to do some new things and try to fix these things, because where we just came from isn't working, and where we're going doesn't seem to be working right. And, in the middle of this, we have things out of control that we can't control. And then we have things that are questionable. and we have mistakes, human mistakes. I'm human. I'm as human as anybody else. I make mistakes just like everybody else. I have made mistakes in my life. So that's part of science. You make a lot of mistakes in science. That's what they teach you. They teach you your first week of grad school in my field that you're going to fail, and that's okay. You got to learn from it, and that helps you get better. My first year in the lab was full of failure. I've seen people go 8 years and grown men cry presenting their research because it was nothing but failure. It's okay to fail, but it's not okay to not learn from it, because when you learn from it, you move past it and it gets better. And that's when things get better for us, but the generations behind us, it gets better for them, right? It gets better for them. And so, now what we get now, we are all talking about, I remember when I was kids and we had fun and played in the street, and now I got to worry about gangbangers and bullets and psychopaths snitching my child.
Well, I mean, you've invented something that definitely is better, for the world. And I'll share the screen real quick. It's from michaelkjaco.com. You go into the shop, go down Allison V, and you want to talk about Allison V?
Sure. Well, in my case, I'm as human as everybody else. One of the things I was plagued in my life was I had these colds, and they were ridiculous. So fall 2019, I had long COVID. My doctors didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what was going on, but I started on a journey from 2006 when I ate so much antibiotics, I was bleeding. Now, there's a problem. My store, which is professional, it's a professional store driven by ShopSite, has been under cyber attack for 1 month. So I'm having problems with my store, and nobody can use the coupon codes and all these things, which I will still honor. So what I've done temporarily while I'm fighting for no logical reason, and people are getting a disservice and laws are being broken, in my opinion, I've opened up a mirror store in eBay, which shipping is actually cheaper. If you send me a message and you have an order, I'll order any coupon code. I will, or any of that. Social media and all of that is functional right now. I'm not happy about what has transpired with this cyber attack. Okay, so within a very short time, the eBay store was spawned. You can still click on the shop tab there. There are tabs there that talk about everything, right? The shop tab, go ahead and click on the shop tab. There's the eBay store. Click on anti-pathogen technology. So I've written up in a way that you can look at this technology and see what it is. I had long COVID, fall 2019. I was suffocating in 2020. Okay. And the technology that I created removed all of the immunology effects of coronaviruses by cracking open spike protein. That's a trimer, and allicin is on the top right in red. It's a small little molecule. It's like a razor blade. It cuts those yellow bonds in the yellow spheres, which are disulfide bridges. The reason the spike protein is the way it is because it's rigid, and the rebar in that spike protein are those sulfur bonds and those yellow atoms. Okay? That protein is camouflage. It's sugar-coated. You can't see the sugar. It's not in that image, but it's sugar-coated. The sugar coating is what hides the pathogen from your autoimmune system. Okay? And it can't recognize it. So then what happens is your body will respond and try to make antibodies. And as it tries to, those antibodies harm you. They create things like strokes, bleeding, all different effects through cytokine storms. I had that and lived it. I was living it The only reason that I created this, I was on that journey and I had an ear infection in Indian Shores. That ear infection resulted in me taking antibiotics for a month. In the summer and June of 2019, I took my daughter over for beach week, had the ear infection, went a month. Here comes July. Oh, July 4th, we're going to go over to Blizzard Beach and have fun. My ear was just killing me. The yellow bacterial infection was gone, but there was a virus there. So I know two people. One is Dr. Alejandro de Quesada, Gatorade founder, had vertigo, ear implants, and couldn't drive a car from a virus. Another one is a guy named Bobby Santos, who's a mediator here, who's his father ran Bolita for Sano Traficani back in the day. So he had vertigo. These two people can't drive a car. I said to myself when I was over there in Indian Shores and all this happened to me, I didn't want to live that way. So when I treated my ear I treated it with a solution from Vitamin Shop that had lanolin, mullein, garlic oil, and olive oil. The pain went away and it was gone in 3 days, and I was playing in the water over there. I was looking at Allison because of Jeff Rent's Allison C and Peter Jostling and that product and this all the way through to these viral codes in the journal of virology. And once I saw that the codes were hackable and I saw that this protein structure was hackable, it works two ways. What you're looking at now is the envelope protein, which is the glue for the viral capsid. There's your virus. Have little props here. There's your virus. That capsid, the glue that holds this sucker together in a sphere, is shown there. When you crack this puppy open, okay, when you crack it open, what happens is, here's a spike protein trimer. You crack open the virus, the RNA digests immediately. RNA is so sensitive. That's why they made synthetic mRNA, so they can inject you with it, because the RNA is so sensitive. It just digests. This cracks open like a piñata, and the RNA springs out, and it doesn't matter if you're infected because it's not carrying the code. It's a nano machine. This is a digital nano machine. It is coded. It's not living. It's digital nano machine. It's a machine. The spike protein, which you scroll back up to that one, this one. It's camouflage. When you crack it open, and I have these fun little props here. When you crack it open, get my antibody over here. Now, it's sugar coated and it's camouflaged. Normally can't recognize it. Antibodies can't recognize it. When you crack it open like that, now you need to understand the aspect ratios of these things. An antibody is a really big thing. When you crack it open, I have one more screen to share. Let me share it one more. I got this in a nice, beautiful image where I don't have to. I don't have to show you the props, although the props are fun. It's only one image, but it's well worth looking at. Okay, here it is. When you crack it open, up here at the top, you see here, there is the normal spike protein on the left. You see that little hand, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
You can see it? Okay, good. When you crack it open, you see how it's now got a gap in it. It's cracked open. Okay? When that cracks open like that, what happens then is, see how big that antibody is? It's big. It has a problem because the size of the antibody is big, and now this is sugar coated. But when you crack that sucker open, now your antibody made by your spleen can plug right in and you can make a monoclonal antibody. And what happens is there are 63,577 coronaviruses documented in GenBank. So what can happen is you can have feline, bovine, or canine coronavirus. When it cracks open like that, these things are all in the database together. You can get immunity to SARS and SARS-CoV-2 and MERS and other things from avian coronavirus. So when you get the one made in the lab, you have immunity to it. And so when it breaks open, you build the immunity. Your body recognizes it. See? And then what happens is you get down here in the adaptive immune system where now the B cell catches it, and now it comes and gets cleaned up by T cell. Because what happens is the sugar coating of the normal thing, it fails. And it doesn't downstream. This is adaptive immunity. It fails. This fails, the whole process. So it's called, there's two parts of immunity. It's called innate immunity. Okay. This is where you get this production of the dendritic cells and CD4 cells. This fails. And the reason that this fails is because when it tries to recognize it, it's sugar coated, and your body can't make antibodies to glucose. You would die. You need the sugar for energy. So it messes all up. Instead, you get it corrected where adaptive immunity kicks in, and the backside of the immune system, which is the adaptive side with the antibodies, kicks in and cleans it up. So you now build your immunity with your own spleen. So what happens is your body remembers. The body is engineered. The immune system is beautifully engineered. So you crack it open, and now your antibodies cleaned up. So there's two methods. But look, I made a mistake. Not me. I never took any vaccines. I'm just a human. I made a mistake. How many doctors themselves? I heard a story the other day. Some guy was talking about, I know who it was. It was General Green and Papa John and those guys with the Island Project out in Hawaii. Their baby just had open heart surgery, and they were flying back next to a cardiologist. We met Dr. Shin.
Yep.
Cardiology and all this. He's a cardiologist. He took this guy sitting in the seat next to his wife was paralyzed. He's a cardiologist. He took the vaccine. How many doctors we know that are dead now? You took the vaccine, and now you got this inside your cell. And it's this. It's a pathogen. It didn't come from a virus. It came from a plasmid. It's synthetic mRNA, but a plasmid is worse, right? Because a plasmid can divide with the cell, and it stick around a long time. Well, how do you get that sucker? You got to bust this open inside the cell. When it's coming off the machinery to make it, that makes this, it fabricates it, because this is a machine itself. Spike protein is a nano machine. It is a nano machine. You got to bust that sucker open. When you do, now the immune system will work on the cell. Well, the beauty of Allison and Allison V and all of that is as a hall pass, you can go inside your cell and it doesn't harm you. So Allison V, I kicked SARS-CoV's ass real good. And I went in the United States Patent Office for us because I wanted to protect this technology against those who trespass against us, because I lived 50 years of my life in hell. Bled from my GI tract for 3 of those years, a methylprednisone that caused me diabetes that I'm recovering from. And I wanted to be able to bring that, protect the intellectual property, and bring it to other Americans and let them have it. So part of that is a legal battle. None of these things come free. Freedom is not free. Bloodshed. Okay. In this case, it's lawyers. There's always a lawyer somewhere in the middle of this mess. It's lawyers. So in order to defend that technology for us and where I am right now, is I'm in a fight. That fight involves the United States Patent Office, examiners, which I don't think are doing the right thing for America. So I'm fighting it. That fight may involve political influencers and government serving people at high levels that I've reached out to through either directly or networked capability that have the opportunity to help Americans break free of this. So I have not been sick since then. I've got 81-year-old people that had Omicron. I've got people of all ages and all kinds of things affiliated with this that don't get sick anymore. Okay. And when you don't get sick anymore, what happens then is not only do you get to enjoy your life on a more daily basis, but it's so good for you that you get stronger. You get stamina. I didn't know that you Roman soldiers were chewing garlic for the 4%, Allison, to go in battle. You get stamina. Okay. I'm 56. I do a lot of work here in my house and I go jet skiing, lift weights and stuff like that. I used to be sore. I don't get sore now. I wish I had this technology when I was 13, when I was playing baseball, when I was lifting free weights and pushing things, preacher bar and getting callous in your hands. I wish I had all that because now I see some things, but the things that I see, I go back and read the Bible, and now I see what the gift of Genesis 1 was, the DNA codes of the plants. I see them, and I respect them even more. I see them. And then what happens is a miracle. So my doctoral work is in cancer and aging. All of a sudden, I get a phone call from a MASH doctor over in Texas. Hey, my COVID people that have cancer that I was trying to protect, they're in remission. Telomerase is another enzyme, and we need more data, but we have data, and the Chinese proved it in clinical trials with IV injections. So that technology, the Allison, I mean, there's two products.
So Allison compared to ivermectin, how many more times effective is Allison V than ivermectin?
Oral ivermectin is 170. This is 170 million times faster than ivermectin. 170 million. You know why? Because this is how fast it coats my entire lungs. When did you see the vapor?
I saw
That's how fast. 1 millisecond. That's 170 million times faster because ivermectin takes 48 hours to go through your GI tract and reach your colon. And what doesn't go in your colon goes in the toilet bowl. Remember, medications, a lot of money is made off of you because it goes through your GI tract in the toilet bowl. That's a problem with some of these things. The Allison itself, you don't want to eat it because it itself, when it goes in the GI tract, it gets destroyed and never makes it to the toilet bowl. So in that patent, there's other things in the patent. Losartan is in there, and there's other things for people that are very sick. Like there's another product called Allison V SE, which has selenium. Okay, now this is generally accepted safe food. You can vape this as an adult. We don't sell this technology because of regulatory problems. Otherwise, we would sell it to you. This is food. You can eat this. You can put this in your ear. It'll knock out ear infection. What I did was when I had Vibrio vulnificus from those people over there, John's Pass on the stone crabs, some of them are firemen. My brother-in-law's a retired fireman. They brought stone crabs over. Let me tell you what, Vibrio vulnificus is 5 times that a strep throat.
Wow.
This here, Allison M, it's not made to vape. It's topical. You can put on your scalp for psoriasis. You can put in your ear for ear infection. It's even better than V for that. You can put it on sores in your mouth, your teeth. Your friend was talking about that the other day.
Mm-hmm.
This, you put it right on your throat when you have strep throat or Vibrio vulnificus. It will knock it off your throat in 24 hours. So this I invented because I had Vibrio vulnificus, and it was a better formula than this one. This one, I had to modify this formula so that the viscosity of this off-the-shelf equipment, which was available in all the gas stations and all over during the pandemic, was available to people, and they could get it cheap, and they didn't have to, worry about going to a pharmacy or some other crap as long as you were an adult. All right. And if you're a parent, you now make a choice with your children. So what happens is, this is food. Parents know it. They do it, and they're like, I'm done with my 6-year-old getting sick. Then they give it to their 6-year-old. Now their 6-year-olds are getting sick. And this is the story I was told. The 6-year-olds are now at school running rings around the sick children wearing masks. And they're not getting sick anymore. So they're not at home. They're not at the doctor. And they're learning. So, I did get the 18-month-old that was going to have tubes in its ear that had this. The grandmother put it in its ears. The doctor's like, what did you do? It's all gone. Okay. This is just like all this other technology. We are not doing ourselves right. So the more this comes to the masses, the more I can bring it down. I get the patent and I secure it for the home team, which is Americans. It's ours. Right now, the problem I'm having is a fight with some foreign entities in the patent office. And foreign, they're all foreign all around. Even the people in the patent office involved. I question their motives. So, in the moral of that story, the moral of that story is there's no patent office on Mars. There's no patent office of Alpha Centauri, all these places. If the UFOs land on the front lawn today and they get out and they say, look at all this energy technology and all this stuff, the 6,000 patents that people say and all that, they automatically go away immediately, because under patent law, anytime you've had knowledge of technology for over 1 year in existence, it automatically nullifies the patent. So, we're back to the pyramid and fiat. We only built the patent system to create trading cards for business purposes in a rigged fiat pyramid system. And somebody wants to eat dinner, and I'm not getting in the middle of it. Anyway, that's the end of that story. Allison B, go to the eBay shop. Go to Allison.com. I'll fix the store. It'll be back online soon. And hello, Tracy, and have a wonderful, you guys have a wonderful evening.
Definitely.
And I hope that you're having a wonderful time out in Lake Tahoe.
Yep, it's beautiful.
Rowing across the lake, enjoying the weather. I miss you guys over here already. And now, when things get better, you got to come back over here, and we'll go jet skiing. Hopefully by then I'll have the jet ski mess sorted out, and all of that stuff. And the forest looks beautiful behind you there. The redwood tree. Are those redwoods?
No, they're pines.
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah, everywhere in the house you got lake view, so you can't quite see through there because of the angle of the sun and stuff. But it's beautiful.
So I've been to Lake Tahoe a couple of times. It is beautiful there. My favorite was going on that gondola up to Heavenly Valley.
Oh, nice.
8,000 feet up. I was there. I saw, the casino they blew up down the street from Caesar Tahoe.
Yep.
Back in the 80s. you know, supposedly that casino was owned by some Arabs or something. And, you know, I don't know all the details of it right offhand, but at one time I did. But Caesar's Palace, what happened to Caesar's Palace? It was there at one time.
It's still there. I
It's
don't know.
still
Maybe
there?
it's owned by somebody else now, but it's the old Caesar's Palace there.
Yeah, it's a different casino. Oh, maybe
Yeah.
it's Harrah's or something. I don't know.
Harvey's, and yeah, they're all still there. I worked at a couple of them for a little bit.
I remember the guy in the Miss Budweiser boat or something. He wrecked it on Lake Tahoe and died from racing it on there. I don't know if you remember that. That was a long, long time ago.
Wow.
Just shows you how old I am. Remember some of these things from the past. Anyway, it was wonderful talking to you guys again. Wonderful talking to you. And
yeah, great information as always. Wow.
So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. If people want to learn about the weather and the electron stuff, it's 4electrons.com or at 4electrons. If you're Allison V, it's AllisonV.com or at, you know, go there. You can find all the social media. At Allison V is a searchable. This is the thing about X. It's a searchable knowledge base that is a timeline. So you can come there and you can search for the things we discuss. You can go to 4electrons and search. Well, I don't have a blue check mark for that one, but you can search in here. You can find papers. You can find videos. You can find all these discussions about the weather and the submarines and the Navy. And you can search them, and they're there. And then I post links to these videos and these interviews and other things there too. But that's how you leverage those websites. So
very good. Awesome. Thanks, Scott. Great information. I know everybody loved it. Everybody in the chat was chatty about it. So good.
Okay. Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Enjoy the Nevada border with California.
Yep. No more Cali for me. Yep.
I need to come visit you. I need to come visit you. Julie's in the room over there. We need to come visit you at Lake Tahoe.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's a great place.
All right,
brother. Cheers.
Take it easy. Peace out.